Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Weekly Reads, where we give you 5 book recommendations all in one show. My name is Devon. I'm a librarian at the Worcester Public Library, just like my co-host Joy. How are you doing today, Joy?
Just enjoying the weekend, Devon.
Yeah, I like this fall weather.
I do too.
Everything that Joy and I are talking about today, you can get for free through the Overdrive and Libby apps with your library card. You can also access these downloadable audio and ebooks through Overdrive on your browser with your laptop or desktop. We're also doing physical item pickup now. So if you want a print copy or if you want a book on CD or whatever, you can request that ahead of time online or over the phone, and we'll call you when it's ready. And if you're not sure how to do any of that, just contact us and I'll help you out. So now I am going to share my screen to show you what books we have lined up for you this week. Okay, and as usual, I'm going to focus on the fiction. Joy will do the nonfiction, and we have our coming soon title. For my first choice, I have The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. This book came out in 2019, and it's described as a quirky and charming novel. As the only child of a single mother, Nina's made her life the way she wants it: a bookstore job, a trivia team, and a cat named Phil. But when the father she never knew dies, giving Nina innumerable sisters, brothers, nieces, and nephews, she is horrified. They live close by and they want to meet her. And if that wasn't enough, her trivia rival Tom has turned out to be cute, funny, and wants to get to know her. Nina considers changing her name and appearance, but she does like her hair. She could go to a deserted island, except there'd be no coffee. Or she could hide in a corner and rock back and forth, but she's already there. Is it time for Nina to come out of her shell? It will take a new family, a persistent suitor, and the effects of ice cream and trivia to make her turn her own new page. The coworker who recommended this to me said that it was one of the best books she's read all year. She enjoyed that Nina was smart, well-read, and lived a functional life despite her anxiety. The book got a starred review from Kirkus and Booklist, and Publishers Weekly said, "In this love letter to book nerds, Waxman introduces the extraordinary introvert Nina, with witty dialogue and a running sarcastic inner monologue. Nina comes to life as she upends her routines and becomes part of a family." I just think this book sounds so fun. Someone who enjoys books and then gets thrown into this big family, I can see a lot of opportunity for hijinks. So if you like books and you want sort of a light, fun read, this sounds like a great choice. And here's one from Joy.
Book nerds are us.
Yes.
My first choice this week is The Great Influenza, the epic story of the deadliest plague in history, which was a New York Times bestseller for a full year after it was first published in 2004, and has recently experienced a surge in popularity for reasons that should be obvious. We will be discussing The Great Influenza at our American History book discussion this coming Tuesday, October 6th, via Zoom at noon. Please join us. When President George W. Bush read The Great Influenza while on vacation in 2005, it scared him. After all, the pandemic killed between 20 million and 100 million people worldwide over a 2-year period between 1918 and 1920, and there was no guarantee that it, or something just as deadly, would not happen again. Unlike most of us, however, Bush was in a position to do something about it. In November of 2005, he delivered a speech in which he warned that a new pandemic was inevitable and urged that we begin to make necessary preparations. Unfortunately, other matters took precedence, and the endeavor languished. So here we are, 16 years later, and 6 months into COVID-19. No doubt We read The Great Influenza with eyes wide open in 2020. And needless to say, Barry's work is as relevant today as ever. When the year 1918 began, scientists and medical professionals had every reason to be optimistic about the future of medicine. Over the past century, enormous strides had been made in the identification, prevention, and treatment of disease. Medical schools and research facilities had been established, and professional standards improved. Then, in the spring of that year, a particularly virulent strain of influenza struck a small community in Kansas. This might have remained an isolated incident had the US not been embroiled in the First World War. However, as it happened, the mass movement of young men and some women transported in overcrowded railroad cars to overcrowded military encampments virtually ensured that the disease would gain a foothold there and then spill over into the civilian population here and throughout the world. Several aspects of the 1918 pandemic were peculiar and peculiarly heartbreaking. Whereas most infectious diseases kill the weakest and most vulnerable among us, this one targeted young adults between 18 and 40, strong, healthy men and women, often parents of children, with high aspirations and everything to live for. Then too, in a small but frightening minority of cases, the virus killed its victim quickly, very quickly, sometimes in a matter of minutes. There are many stories like this one. A passenger entered a streetcar in perfect health and 10 minutes later was taken off the vehicle on a stretcher with his face covered. Most of those who contracted the flu eventually recovered, some having experienced only the mildest of symptoms. Others, however, fell prey to neurological or cardiac problems years later. The most terrifying aspect of the pandemic, however, was our terrible helplessness in the face of the inexorable spread of a disease that even the most knowledgeable among us could neither understand nor cure. Only preventative measures were effective. Most importantly, social distancing and strictly enforced quarantine. Barry ends The Great Influenza with final cautionary note, and do bear in mind that this book was published in 2004. I quote, "So the final lesson is a simple one. Those in authority must retain the public's trust. The way to do that is to distort nothing, to put the best face on nothing, to try to manipulate no one. And then there's this. Society cannot function if it is every man for himself. Civilization cannot survive that." All too familiar?
Well, this is definitely a timely book, and I know it's really hard to get a copy right now because it's so popular.
Weeks and weeks of wait.
All right, well, here's my next fiction choice. A book by Paul Tremblay. This one is Survivor Song. It came out just this past summer in July. It's described as beautifully detailed and viscerally frightening, and here's why. In just a few weeks, Massachusetts is overrun by a rabies-like virus that spread through saliva. Those infected quickly lose their minds and are driven to bite and infect as many others as they can. Hospitals are filled with the sick and dying, and hysteria has taken hold. Though the Commonwealth is under quarantine and curfew, society is breaking down and emergency protocols are faltering. Then, Dr. Romola Rams Sherman, a pediatrician, receives a frantic call from Natalie, her friend who's 8 months pregnant. Natalie's husband was killed by an infected neighbor, and in an attempt to save him, Natalie was bitten too. She must get to a hospital to get a rabies vaccine. The clock is ticking for her and her unborn child. Natalie's fight for life becomes a desperate odyssey as she and Rams make their way through a hostile landscape filled with dangers beyond their worst nightmares. Paul Tremblay is definitely an author coming into his own. This book got starred reviews from Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and Booklist. Author Nathan Ballingrud said, Tremblay has revitalized the zombie novel by keeping the focus narrow and intimate. Two women, in the space of a few hours, just trying to get across town. The result is heartfelt and terrifying, with a narrative that moves like a bullet train. So if you're looking for a new spin on a zombie novel or something that just sounds really suspenseful, this is a great book to choose. Here's another from Joy.
And the Massachusetts setting really adds an extra dimension. It's a great book.
Yeah, definitely.
My next choice for this week is Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. Let's see, what can I say about Jenny Slate, except that she is a stand-up comic, actor, and author, originally from Massachusetts, who has written a collection of very short essays that are, well, the title says it all, little pockets of delicious weirdness. Don't believe me? Listen to the introduction. One of my fantasy dimensions is strangers on the street see me and think I might be French. You are a stranger. You see me and you think that there I am, a French woman. And then you look at me and allow a deeper kind of feeling sight to occur. And you see past the woman and you sense that I am actually a homemade Parisian croissant. And I was born in a kitchen in a house with cool stone floors and deep windowsills that hold the light in the shape of a big box, windowsills that are so deep that they could be a desk. I was born a breakfast pastry in the fancy part of France, and hours after I was born, I was still warm from the heat of the oven. I knew that my warmth and lovely shape were the result of thoughtful and gentle work. Oh, please feel it. I am the croissant that felt its own heat and curves and wished to become a woman, and I am that woman from the wish. Oh, well, if you are someone who heard this and thought to yourself, I don't know what that was, but whoa, it's not for me, put it down right now. It gets worse. If, on the other hand, you find yourself intrigued, delighted, and maybe even deeply envious of Slate's wondrous imagination, keep going. It gets better. In her work, Slate struggles with disappointment, romantic heartache, discontent, and low self-esteem, but she is neither whiny nor self-absorbed. In Slate's luminous world, boundaries between reality and dreamscape, living and dead, animate and inanimate, human and other than human, are permeable. And every moment, no matter how dark, may be redeemed at any moment by unexpected joy. What a treat.
Well, I love that excerpt that you read, but I don't think she looks like a croissant.
No, she doesn't, but I sure want one.
Yeah, me too. All right, it's time for our coming soon title, but before I switch to that screen, I'd like to remind you to give us some likes and loves if you enjoy our show. And don't forget to share our video with your friends who also love books. Okay, and here's our coming soon title, Bright and Dangerous Objects. This one comes out on October 6th, Tuesday, which you might remember is also the day of Joy's book club.
Thank you.
This book is described as a thrilling feminist adventure. Deep sea diver Solvig has a secret. She wants to be one of the first humans to colonize Mars, and she's one of 100 people shortlisted to do just that. But to fulfill her dream, she'll have to leave behind everything she's known forever. As the prospect of going into space becomes more real, she's forced to decide who she really is. Will she tell her partner James about her plans? Should she turn her back on Mars and stay on Earth? Should she try for a baby like James wants? Or could she start a family and then go to Mars? Or does she even want both of those things? Intimate and captivating, this book asks the questions that women have been asking themselves for centuries. This title got a starred review from Publishers Weekly, but I really liked the review from The Millions. They said, "It's a beautiful novel about an undersea welder who juggles her wish to go to Mars with the reality of pregnancy. It's a fascinating book about the work that's usually invisible and a maternal ambivalence that reaches for the stars, told from the perspective of a singular, well-drawn protagonist." This book sounds like it's very well written. I'm really interested in a character who works under the sea but also wants to go into space. And I think it's an interesting twist on the science fiction novel where she's like struggling with whether she wants to have a family or go out into Mars. If you'd like to put a hold on this title, it is in our catalog in the print version, so you can do that now, or you can wait. I'm not sure when it will be on Overdrive and Libby, but hopefully soon. And that brings us to the end of our episode for this week. Don't forget that if you would like a book recommendation or a read alike for your favorite author, you can just put that in the comments below and Joy and I will see what we can do. Otherwise, we hope to see you next time.
See you later, fellow readers.